Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto was sweating bullets and he stood just outside the Hyuga compound. He has been here before but the estate just looks so intimidating for some reason. He knew why though. Inside was Hinata's father, Hiashi Hyuga, one of the strictest and most stoic men in the entire village. Naruto knew that Hiashi seemed to have loosened up over the years and he, Hinata and Hanabi have been closer than ever and he was happy about that. Naruto couldn't believe it. He faced Orochimaru, Pain and even freaking Kagaya without a second thought and right now he was nervous about talking to his girlfriend's father. Naruto only met him a few times since he started dating Hinata. When Hinata announced they were dating, Hiashi was silent for a long time that it made him very uncomfortable until voiced his approval and left. Naruto wondered if he was really thinking it over or if he did it on purpose to bug him, he would probably never know. Naruto knew he needed to talk to the man today. His girlfriend was on a mission in Suna and won't be back for a few days and he probably wouldn't get another chance to ask him. Naruto was going to ask his beautiful and wonderful Hinata to marry him and tradition states he needed to ask the father permission before he proposed. Naruto hated those stuffy customs and wanted to just flat out ask Hinata but even he knew that the Hyugas were very traditional and old-fashioned and while he knew Hinata would likely agree to marry him, she would rather do it by the book. So that's why he was here. He was planning on taking Hinata on a special date when she got back from her mission. He's been saving up and planning it for weeks now, but he still had to ask Hiashi. Kami, give me strength. Naruto muttered as he found his nerve and approached the estate where a servant greeted him. It was a branch member named Madoka. She was very nice and was more of a friend to him and Hinata, though she still insisted with honorifics. Naruto-sama, it's a pleasure to see you once more. Madoka greeted as she invited him inside. Is Hiashi-sama here? Naruto asked nervously, surprising Madoka in the process. Why yes, he's in his office right now, do you wish to see him? Madoka asked and Naruto nodded almost too fast. I'll inform him that you're here. Madoka left, leaving Naruto alone in the courtyard. Several others members of the Hyuga clan saw and greeted him and some children ran up to him. Naruto-sama. Some of the children surrounded him and greeted him, asking him about his latest missions and how he was doing. While he has received this kind of attention since the war, and while the Hyuga clan did respect him for his actions, him saving Hinata and Hanabi, along with the world during the Moon Crisis made most of the clan, particularly the younger generations more receptive to him and they were all thrilled when it was announced he and Hinata were dating. One child, a girl named Yuko asked if he was going to marry Hinata when Naruto came over to help Hinata spar. Needless to say it embarrassed the young couple until her mother apologized for the child's bluntness. Now children, settle down, Naruto-sama is busy. Madoka said as she came back. Hiashi-sama will see you now. Madoka said as she guided the blonde until he reached the office. Thank you Madoka, that will be all. Hiashi said as he dismissed his maid. Naruto was now alone with Hiashi, there was no turning back now. Good afternoon Uzumaki-san, how have you been? Hiashi said politely to the blonde. Fine. Naruto said which caused Hiashi to raise an eyebrow at his behavior. He's nervous about something, Hiashi thought as he studied the boy's body language. What brings you here? You know my daughter won't be back for a few more days. Hiashi said while he had his suspicions for this surprise visit. I know, I actually came here to talk to you, Dadbao, sir. Naruto said looking down, trying hard to remember his manners and not blow his chance. What is it that you want to talk about? Hiashi asked. Thought he had a feeling he knew what this was about. It didn't take a genius to figure out why a young man would set a meeting with his girlfriend's father, especially when she wasn't home at the moment. It's about Hinata. Naruto said trying hard not to ruin this. What about my daughter? Hiashi asked. Your daughter, Hinata, she's really important to me, the most important person in my life, and I love her with all my heart, Dadbao. Naruto said as he was careful with his words. She's very precious to me, she's beautiful, gentle, amazing, kind, smart and, she's just wonderful. Naruto was starting to ramble a bit. I can't say I can't imagine my life without her. I know what it would be like and it would be horrible, too horrible to bear. Naruto said honestly, recalling the pain he felt when Hinata left with Tonari and fought it back. Are you trying to make a point or did you just come here to sing praises of my daughter? Hiashi said with a ghost of a smirk causing the blonde to flinch a bit. The reason I came here is because I want to marry your daughter. Naruto finally managed to say. Hiashi wasn't surprised, he actually had been expecting this for some time. I see, Hiashi said in an even tone, which somehow made Naruto more nervous. I'd like to ask your permission to marry Hinata-chan. Naruto said quickly, realizing he didn't say it right. Hiashi just stood there for a moment, like he was really thinking it over. But he already knew his answer. He accepted the fact that the boy would someday become his son-in-law, even before he and Hinata officially started dating. Very well, you have my blessings. Hiashi said, suddenly surprising the blonde boy, at how quick he answered. Really? Naruto stuttered and Hiashi was laughing on the inside at how the boy looked now. Were you expecting me to say no? Hiashi asked, toying with the boy who shook his head fervently. No. Well, I was hoping you said yes and all, but Naruto was rambling again and Hiashi decided to stop the boy before he hurt himself. Uzumaki-san, me and my clan, as well as the entire nation owe a great debt to you and I know you'll make a fine husband for my daughter. Hiashi said, causing Naruto to blink a bit and Hiashi decided it was time to spell it out for him. You're the son of the 4th Hokage and Kushina-sama rest their souls, you're also the hero of the 4th Shinobi World War, you saved the village from pain, you united the elemental nations, also you saved both my daughters as well as the entire world from that wrecked Tonari, not to mention you plan on becoming Hokage someday, am I right? Hiashi listed and Naruto nodded. Then I believe your credentials are more than up to my clan's standards, politically speaking of course. Hiashi said diplomatically, before adding, there's also something much more important than all that. Hiashi suddenly said, what's that? Naruto asked. You make my daughter happy. Hiashi said, showing a real smile on his face, the first one Naruto has ever seen. Thank you Hiashi. Sama, you have no idea how much this means to me and you won't regret this, Dadbao. Naruto said beaming with his usual cheerfulness, still getting used to honorifics. I better not, Hiashi said in a stern tone and gave Naruto a look that shut him up. Just remember one thing, Uzumaki-san, I expect that you will take care of my daughter and treat her right. If I discover that you hurt her in some way, there won't even be a body left to bury. Hiashi said in a cold tone, scaring the younger male and making him paler than a ghost. I promise that it will never come to that. Hinata is my most precious person and I'll always treasure her. Naruto said nervously, still feeling intimidated by the older man. I'm glad to hear that, Hiashi said in a more normal tone and seemed to calm down, startling the boy with his mood swings. Is he bipolar or something? Naruto thought to himself before deciding it was time to leave. So when will the proposal take place? Hiashi asked out suddenly. Oh, I was planning on asking her after she comes back from her mission. Naruto said. So in less than a week's time. Hiashi said, and Naruto nodded. If there is nothing else you need to tell me, you can leave Uzumaki-san. Hiashi said, causing the younger man to blink. Oh okay. Thanks again Hiashi-sama. Naruto said before he finally left. Hiashi used his Byakugan to see he was finally out of hearing range. Hiashi smirked to himself, before it melted into a content smile. To think, my eldest daughter is getting married. Hiashi mused as he looked to a framed photo on his right. It was a picture of himself, his late wife Hikari and their two girls. Hinata was 5 and Hanabi was still a newborn when the picture was taken. He stared at the image of his beautiful Hikari. It was almost startling to see how Hinata resembled her in looks. It's been almost 13 years since she passed away. Her death was the darkest time Hiashi faced in his life, seeing his beloved ill and getting worse each passing day until the Shinigami finally claimed her, leaving a great pain in his family, that while it never quite healed, it was at least bearable now. Hiashi nearly experienced that pain again when he nearly lost both of his daughters to that dreaded tonnery, and there was literally nothing he could do about it since he was hospitalized. It was only thanks to Naruto and his friends that he still had his daughters, especially Hinata. He thought back to his eldest and felt a pang of guilt. He knew he wasn't the best of fathers and he made many mistakes, and both his daughters answered for them. He considered himself fortunate that they were willing to forgive and give him a chance to make up for his past errors, not only to them but for their entire clan, including the branch members. He owed it to his brother and nephew. If only you were all here to see this. Hiashi thought to himself, and he recalled memories of his wife, brother and nephew, good people who were taken long before their time but still lived on in their hearts and spirit. His one regret was that they wouldn't be there to watch the special day. Hiashi shook his head. He needed to get back to work, there was a lot to prepare for, and he was not talking about the wedding but the announcement to the elders. His problem wasn't that he thought the elders would reject the proposal, far from it, they would be thrilled that Hinata would be married to a ninja of Naruto-san's caliber and the future 7th Hokage of the village. It was a beautiful spring day in the village of Konohagakure. With the warm weather having long melted the snow, the villagers were now enjoying the warmth and beauty of Mother Nature. The flowers were in bloom, the sky was a beautiful shade of blue, and the animals were finally out of hibernation. Needless to say, it was the perfect day to be outside, especially with the one you loved. However, the beautiful scenery wasn't enough to calm down a rather apprehensive blonde knucklehead. Naruto sighed as he was on his way to pick Hinata up for their date. But this wasn't like any other date. Today was the day he was finally going to ask her to marry him. He knew there would be no better time than this. Hiashi gave him his blessings, the weather was perfect and they both took the day off today to spend time with each other. He had everything planned out. He was going to take her out on a picnic by a waterfall. He even stopped by the bakery to pick up the cinnamon rolls she loved so much. He also stopped by the Yamanaka flower shop and splurged a bit on some white lilies to surprise her with, though he had a run-in with Ino, who gushed about how romantic he was being and complaining to Sai, who was also there. Anyway, during the picnic they would eat, talk, and he would somehow work his proposal into the conversation. He was still nervous, very nervous, terrified to be precise. Did his father feel this way when he asked his mother to marry him? Naruto kept walking but looked up to his father's carving on the Hokage monument. Even before he learned the truth, he always admired the 4th Hokage. Sometimes he still couldn't believe he was his father, the legendary 4th Hokage. He was proud to call his father his hero and idol. If he was still around, he wondered if his dad would give him advice about the big decision he was going to make. Naruto chuckled. He already knew what both his parents would say if they were here right now. His dad would express his pride in him and wish him the best of luck, and his mother would tell him to grow some balls and ask the girl he loved to marry him already, before hugging him and gushing about how happy she was that her son has become a man. Naruto pushed the thoughts of his parents away when he felt that familiar clench in his chest again. Now was not the time to get moody. He had a proposal to do. He finally arrived to the Hyuga compound and glanced at his watch. He was right on time. He promised Hinata he would pick her up by 10 so they could enjoy a nice walk together before their picnic lunch. Just like last time, Madoka greeted him and led him into the living room where he saw his beautiful girlfriend wearing a cute spring dress that matched her eyes. "Hey Hinata-chan, you look beautiful, Dadbeo," Naruto said as he presented her the flowers. "Oh Naruto-kun, these are lovely, you didn't have to," Hinata said as she admired the flowers. "I wanted to," Naruto said honestly. causing his beautiful girlfriend to smile. She even prepared a special lunch for the both of them. She was pleased that Naruto enjoyed her cooking, and she even made her own special ramen that he said was even better than Ichiraku's. Shall we? Naruto asked as he offered his arm to her. We shall, Hinata said as she took his arm and they were gone. The two lovebirds agreed to take the long way to the forest where they were going to have their picnic. They both just wanted to enjoy the nice day and being with each other. It truly was a beautiful day in the village. Shops were busy, children were playing and everyone seemed to be happy with their lives. Naruto-senpai. The couple stopped and saw a group of academy students run up to them, 2 girls and 2 boys who eyed the couple in admiration. Yo, Naruto said as he flashed his wide smile. Hello, children, Hinata said kindly. Naruto-senpai, could you please spar with us? I've been working hard with those moves you showed us. One boy named Chan said as he did some poses and looked eager for some action. Could you please? We really like some more tips. The other children pleaded to their idol. That sounds awesome, Chan, and I would, but we're kinda busy today, Dadbeo. Naruto said as he held Hinata's hand. Ooh, are you two on a date? One of the boys, Seiji, asked in a teasing voice only to be shushed by one of his friends. Yep, Naruto said matter-of-factly. You look so pretty, Hyuga-sama. One of the young girls, Takako said, truly admiring the older girl. Thank you, Hinata said shyly, making her look even cuter to Naruto. Well, of course she's pretty. The other girl Michi said with a smile, but deep down she was a bit jealous. She was one of Naruto's fangirls, but she did understand that it was unlikely due to the age difference. Maybe tomorrow, guys, okay. Naruto said finally. Wait, Naruto, I don't see why we can't just give them a few pointers. Hinata said suddenly, surprising Naruto and the children. Naruto, it won't be long and the forest will still be there when we get there. Hinata said, please Naruto-senpai. The children begged again. Naruto sighed and smiled. He really couldn't blame Hinata. Besides, a part of him actually didn't mind this. It would give him more time to think his proposal over. Alright, but just for a bit. Naruto said, causing the kids to cheer and Hinata to smile. They headed to the training fields, which thankfully was nearby the forest where they were going to have their date. Hinata was supervising the girls who were sparring while Naruto was giving advice to the boys who were doing taijutsu practice. You're doing very well, Michi-chan. Hinata praised. Naruto glanced at her from a distance. He couldn't help but smile. She really was a special woman. Naruto-senpai. One of the boys yelled, bringing Naruto back to reality. Like this? Chan asked as he proceeded to show off his taijutsu stance. Yep. I can honestly say you have this made, Dadbeo. Naruto said honestly. These kids were good. After 15 minutes, the couple left before saying goodbye to their unofficial trainees. You're really great with kids. Naruto said with admiration. He knew she was going to be a great mother and an even better wife. So are you, Hinata replied. After a while, they finally reached their destination, a beautiful valley near a waterfall. The scenery was breathtaking. The flowers were in bloom, the sky was clear and sunny, and the waterfall looked so majestic in this setting. It was perfect. Naruto helped Hinata set everything up, and before they knew it, they were enjoying their romantic picnic date. It's beautiful here, Hinata said as she pulled out their food from the basket. Not as beautiful as you, Dadbeo. Naruto said, causing his girlfriend to blush. They ate for a bit and talked about life. Hinata told him about her mission in Suna and Naruto told her about how his training was coming along. Are you serious? Hinata asked while giggling. I am. I was practicing with the Rasengan again, trying to see if I could increase its size when I went too far and left a crater the size of Kuruma near here. Naruto said with a chuckle. You always were a hard worker, Naruto-kun. Hina said with admiration. Naruto took a deep breath. He knew now was the time. They had eaten and had dessert and talked for a bit. He had to stop beating around the bush. He had to be a man and ask the girl he loved to make his wish come true. Hinata-chan, you know that you're precious to me, right? Naruto asked suddenly, causing her to blink. Well, yes. You're precious to me as well, Naruto-kun. Hinata said honestly to her boyfriend. Do you remember our fight against Tonari? Naruto asked. How could I forget? Hinata teased. She could never forget that day. Her sister being kidnapped, herself almost being forced to wed Tonari, and Naruto helping her save her sister and confessing that he was in love with her, ending with their first kiss. Do you remember what I said to you, when we beat him, when we escaped? Naruto persisted. You said that you loved me. Hinata answered smiling. Yes, I did. But I said something else. Naruto continued, and Hinata wondered where this was going. I told you that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. Naruto said as he pulled out a small box, and Hinata gasped. Naruto-kun. Hinata rarely stuttered anymore, but she felt this could be the exception. Hinata-chan, I meant it when I said there is no one else for me. I want to spend the rest of my life with you until the day I die, if you will let me. Naruto said as he opened the box to reveal the ring within. Hinata was stunned. She couldn't believe this was happening. She stared at the beautiful ring before her and her beloved who was offering it to her, and a lifetime of love altogether. The ring was silver, it was modest but elegant, and Hinata couldn't believe it was being offered to her. Hinata-chan, will you make my wish come true? Will you marry me? Naruto finally did it, he asked her. Why yes. Oh yes. Hinata said before she glomped him, hugging him and crying in joy. On the inside Naruto was chanting, she said yes. She said yes. She said yes. He couldn't believe that soon, his beloved, this beautiful angel of a woman would become his wife. His wife. Hinata will soon be his wife. Naruto quickly placed the ring on her finger and then proceeded to kiss her. Naruto felt like the luckiest man in the world, while Hinata was feeling like she was the luckiest girl in the world. Neither knew or cared that they had an audience. From a safe distance, Hiyashi Hyuga witnessed the entire exchange and was smiling. It has been done, Hiyashi said before leaving, eager to get away before they caught him. He suspected his daughter might not appreciate his eavesdropping her proposal. Not to mention he had a wedding to prepare for. The newly engaged couple began to pack up as they noticed it was getting late as the sun was starting to set down. It seems time does fly when you're having a wonderful time. After cleaning up, the two returned back to the village, both in states of complete and utter bliss. I still can't believe this is happening. Hinata whispered as she glanced down to the ring on her finger, feeling so much joy at the moment. Believe it, Hinata-chan, Naruto whispered back as he brought his arm around her, bringing her closer to him as they walked back home. Soon, you will be all mine, Naruto said proudly, causing Hinata to giggle. Funny, I thought you were already mine. Hinata teased a bit. True, but this makes things more official, Naruto said with a cheeky grin. There's just so much to do now. The wedding, the reception, not to mention we have to tell everyone. Did you ask my father? Hinata asked to her blonde fiancé. Yep. I asked him 3 days ago while you were still in Suna. Naruto said to his lovely bride-to-be. Hinata just couldn't believe it. This morning she was just looking forward to a romantic picnic with the man she loved, and now she was engaged. It was like a dream. After so long, she was finally going to marry the man she's been in love with since she was a little girl. The two lovebirds finally arrived to the village and decided to take the long way home. They enjoyed the beautiful sights of the village in the evening. The sun has set and the street lights were on. People were enjoying themselves at restaurants and other establishments, and everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. It seems nothing could shatter the tranquility of this moment. Sai no baka. A loud, shrill voice managed to break through though. Naruto and Hinata turned around to see their friends Ino and Sai in an argument. It was almost comical seeing Ino yelling at her unofficial boyfriend and Sai standing there with his fake smile, unintimidated but still trying to placate the obviously angry blonde girl. Now, Ino-chan. Sai said calmly, which had no effect on the blonde girl. Don't you Ino-chan me. You better have a good excuse for being 5 minutes late. Ino yelled. Ino scowled at her date. True, even she realized it wasn't worth making a big fuss over 5 minutes, but no woman liked it when their date was late, especially after spending a good chunk of the day getting ready for it. Ino still couldn't believe it when Sai asked her out on a date. She could still remember it, though it was mostly because Sai was carrying a book called How to Properly Date a Woman, and read it for a minute before he quoted the book and asked her out. Ino was actually looking forward to it and even bought a new dress and had her hair done up for tonight. Sai was going to take her to the new restaurant called Narusagawa's Lounge, which opened a few days ago and they were supposed to be there by 7. I'm very sorry Ino-chan, I realize it's incredible rude for a man to leave his date waiting, but I was putting the finishing touches on your gift. Sai said honestly, causing the blonde girl to blink. A gift? Ino questioned, her anger quickly subdued for the moment. Sai pulled out a rolled-up painting for his satchel. He opened it and presented it to his lovely but loud lady friend. It was a beautiful painting of a Sumire violet and Ino was left speechless for once in her life. He read that woman liked it when you gave them presents. He was originally going to get her some real flowers, but since her family owned a flower shop, he didn't want to risk running into her and spoiling her surprise, and even he realized it might not be in good taste if he went to another shop. He also read that women were touched when men gave them things that were handmade, like write them poetry or carves names in trees. So he decided to two birds with one stone and decided to paint her a flower. Oh, Sai, it's beautiful. Ino said as she admired the flower painting. You know, most guys would just buy a girl a real flower, but you're not like most guys. Ino said in a warm, fond way. That book was worth every yen. Sai thought as he mentally congratulated himself. The two young adults were about to leave for their date when they saw Hinata and Naruto nearby, who were pretending having not seen their little argument. Why, if it isn't our dear friends. How are you both, Naruto and Hyuga-san? Sai said, trying to be polite, since he was still learning to be more social. Oh, hello, Ino-san. Sai-kun. Hinata greeted her comrades, trying to sound casual. Hey, guys, Naruto said casually. So I take it you two are also on a date tonight? Sai asked, trying to make small talk. We're actually returning from one. Hinata answered and tried to hide her blushing and discreetly hid her ring finger, hoping they wouldn't see it. She was looking forward to tell their friends about the engagement, but she was hoping to do it tomorrow with everyone together, and Ino was a big gossip. If she finds out, then the whole country would know by morning. She and Naruto agreed not to tell their friends till morning since she wanted her father and sister to be the first ones to know, and Naruto was more than happy to grant her request. Naruto was currently holding her hand and made a discreet effort to cover the ring, hoping no one, especially Ino, would notice. Judging from the blush on your face, it must have been some date. Ino said with a smirk, causing the dark-haired girl to flinch. Ino-san. Hinata stuttered, not helping it since today has been a big day. Oh, lighten up Hinata, I'm just teasing. Ino said, giggling. Sai, however, remained silent, which was nothing new, but he noticed something was off with his two friends. It wasn't hard to notice the slight tense muscles and how carefully Hinata was downplaying what happened between her and Naruto. He also noticed the way they were holding hands. The few times he had seen the two together, their hands were always intertwined, but this time, Naruto was cuffing Hinata's left hand, and covering her fingers as well. Don't tell me that he actually did it. Sai thought in astonishment but kept his neutral expression. If his hunch was right, his friend would soon be taking the life sentence known as matrimony. Sai wondered why they wouldn't tell them the big news, but he read in a book that when a friend was trying to keep something personal, it was best to confront them about it before telling a third-party member, in this case, Ino. While Ino and Hinata were talking, or in this case, Ino pulling Hinata aside and bragging about where Sai was taking her, and Hinata was trying to keep up with her. Sai noticed there was no ring on her hand, and he also noticed one of Naruto's was in a fist as well. So when will it be? Sai asked his friend and made an effort to be quiet so Ino couldn't hear them. When will what be? Naruto asked in confusion. The wedding, of course. Sai said flatly. Naruto's jaw dropped and looked incredulous. How could Sai know already? How? Naruto almost yelped but remembered that the village's biggest gossip was 5 feet away, currently chatting with his fiancée. I wasn't an Anbu for nothing. I noticed how proud you looked, and I also noticed how you tried to cover Hinata's left hand as soon as you saw us. Sai pointed out. He. Busted. Naruto said sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head. Could you please keep it quiet, especially from you know who? Me and Hinata are planning on telling everyone tomorrow, but she wants her dad and sister to be the first ones to know. Naruto whispered to his teammate. Very well, was all Sai said. Hinata finally managed to pull away from her chatty friend and they waved goodbye to Ino and Sai, who were currently running late for their reservations. After a while they finally managed to arrive to the Hyuga compound. Meanwhile Hiashi Hyuga was currently within the estate, looking out the window ever so often. Hiashi was normally a very patient man, but he was getting a bit restless, not that he would admit it, of course. He's been waiting for hours for his oldest daughter and future son-in-law to return so they could inform him of the big news. Though he had to be discreet about it, as far as anyone else would know, he wasn't even supposed to know that the proposal has happened yet. He then saw the young couple walking up to the estate and he went straight to his office, since he knew that would be the first place they would look for him. He sat at his desk and prepared himself for what was to come. After a few minutes, he heard a knock on the door. Enter, he said in his normal tone of voice. Hinata and Uzumaki-san then came in with large smiles on their faces. Hello, father, Hinata said. Ah, Hinata-chan. And Uzumaki-san, what brings you both here? Hiashi asked and tried to act as neutral as possible. Father, I have something very important to tell you, but first, where's Hanabi Imoto? Hinata asked. In her room, I'll send for her. Hiashi said and soon ordered one of his maids to fetch his younger daughter. Soon Hanabi joined them and Hiashi ordered his servants to leave. All right, I'm here, Hanabi said as she sat down next to her father. Now what is this about, daughter? Hiashi asked his eldest. Naruto-kun and I. We're getting married. Hinata said giddily as she showed her engagement ring. Are you serious, Ne-sama? Hanabi exclaimed as she then proceeded to hug her sister. I can't believe this. Hanabi cheered and even found herself hugging Naruto. Believe it, we're getting married, Naruto announced happily as he still held Hinata's hand, who was smiling and laughing happily. I believe a congratulations are in order, Hiashi said with one of his rare smiles. Well done, Uzumaki-san, Hiashi said genuinely to the younger male. Thanks again for letting me, sir, Naruto said with his trademark smile. Father, I can't believe you knew and didn't tell me, Hanabi whined. The following morning was a busy one for the Hyuga clan, as every elite member of the prosperous, noble clan was currently in the conference room, which was used only during important meetings. It was late in the afternoon when Hiashi announced a clan meeting that was of great importance. The Hyuga conference room was currently filled to the brim with all the elders and main house members, along with Hanabi since she was heiress apparent. This better be important, Hiashi-sama, said Hinode, an elderly woman in her late 60s said with a sour look on her face. I believe it is, Hinode Obasan, Hiashi said dully, while trying to ignore the old hag. Hinode was one of the traditionalists who favored the old ways. She also had an overinflated opinion about herself and her descendants, believing them superior than they really were. I have called you all here to discuss an important matter concerning my eldest daughter Hinata, Hiashi said, getting everyone's attention. As you know, my eldest is nearing 20 and is of marriageable age, Hiashi said, while Hanabi was smirking. We are well aware of that, Hiashi-sama. We already went through this when Uzumaki-san announced his intentions to court your daughter. Hizen, a bald elder in his 80s said. I am pleased to announce that my daughter is getting married. Uzumaki-san has proposed marriage to her. Hiyashi said, shocking the other members in the room, and Hanabi tried hard not to laugh out loud at their expressions since it was still a serious family matter. That's right, Naruto-san and Nae-sama are really getting married. Hanabi said giddily, while the elders and other main house members finally had the information sink it. I suppose it's a suitable match. Kagari, the youngest of the male elders, said thoughtfully. Uzumaki-san is a ninja of the highest esteem and he is also the prime candidate of becoming the next Hokage. His marriage to Hinata-sama would be a great benefit for our clan, Kagero said while many others muttered in agreement. Not to mention that he is the hero of the village and the world, he saved the village from pain, he also was the hero of the war, not to mention that he saved both Hinata-sama and Hanabi-sama and the entire world from the moon crisis. Hinode said as she thought about Naruto's past exploits and was impressed to say the least. She knew that the Uzumaki boy was a catch and many young girls fancied him for his power and status as the hero of the war. She was surprised but pleased to learn that a member of their clan managed to get his attention and Hinata-sama marrying him would give them a great advantage, especially after he is officially inaugurated. Though she was secretly upset that Hinata-sama would be the bride since she was hoping her granddaughter Hitomi would have been the one marry the boy. Her darling Hitomi was the very example of what a Hyuga woman should be, graceful within the home but also deadly on the field of battle. She was already a Jonin and she was very beautiful as well. She still believed she would have made a more suited match than the former heiress, especially since Hitomi was one of Naruto's fangirls. But even she knew that politically speaking, Hinata was the more appropriate match since she was still one of the daughters of the head of the clan, even if she was a meek mess that was better suited for housework than battle. His lineage is also rather impressive, being the son of the legendary fourth Hokage, not to mention his relation to the Senju clan, and being disciple of the late Toad sage Jiraiya, as well as one of the students of the current Hokage Kakashi-sama. Hoshimi, Kagero's wife said as the others muttered in agreement. But what of our lineage? Keisuke, the oldest and most traditional elder said, getting everyone's attention. While I am impressed with the boy's credentials, we still have the Byakugan to think about. If Hinata were to marry him, any children resulting in that union who obtain it would belong to his clan. Keisuke reminded them and ignored the death glare Hiyashi was sending him. That is true, Hoshimi said as she thought about that little detail. It was their duty to protect their Kekkei Genkai no matter the cost. However, Uzumaki-san is one of the few survivors of his clan, so I believe it won't cause any political complications. Hoshimi informed them, usually in the matter of a male outsider joining the family, there was always the issue regarding any potential children with the Byakugan and which clan they would belong to. Few or not, tradition states that the only safe way to protect the Byakugan. Keisuke was cut off when Hiyashi sent him a wave of intent that would have the weaker man, since it was obvious what the old man was about to suggest. I will not let you brand my grandchildren with that accursed cage bird seal. Hiyashi said, warning them not to cross him. The abolition of the cage bird seal has been in debate for years now, ever since Naruto fought Neji in the Chunin exams. While many main house members were all in favor of the change, there were still some elders who were too stubborn and refused to let go of the old ways, and Kagero and Keisuke were some of the more hardcore traditionalists in the entire clan. Hiyashi-sama, it's to protect a Byakugan. Keisuke tried to remind him, but Hiyashi wouldn't be swayed by the manipulative old fool. We have discussed this before, that the cage bird seal has only succeeded in dividing this clan and causing nothing but tension and resentment with the other members. Hiyashi said as he thought about his late brother and nephew and all the sacrifices and suffering they had to endure because of that damned seal. It has already caused much damage within this family and I will not let the next generation suffer it, especially my future grandchildren. Hiyashi said, he owed that much to his brother and nephew, he wouldn't let their sacrifices be in vain. Hiyashi-sama, be reasonable, Keisuke pleaded to the clan's leader, while on the inside was trying to keep his temper in check. I am being reasonable. Hanabi is heiress apparent and Hinata is to become matriarch of the Uzumaki clan and Uzumaki-san is a trustworthy man, we know we can count on him to protect the Byakugan. Hiashi said with no hesitation. He knew his daughter and descendants would be well taken care of. Naruto was a good man and he knew he could trust him. Also, let's not forget that Hinata marrying him will elevate her to a much higher status once he is officially inaugurated as Hokage. Hiashi reminded them, and on the inside was smirking as he noticed the frustrated look in Keisuke's eyes. Many members thought it over. While they were happy a member of their clan would be wed to the next Hokage, some people like Keisuke and Kagero didn't like the idea that in a few years at most, Hinata would be on a much higher social caste than them. How do you propose to keep the Byakugan safe without the use of the cage bird seals? Only main house members can be unbranded. Kagero said, curious to what Hiashi planned to say. There will be no need since if Hinata's children inherit our Byakugan they will still be main house children. Hiashi said, confusing the others in the room, including Hanabi. What do you mean that they will still be main house? Hoshimi asked with a raised eyebrow, confused about the idea. Uzumaki-san is the only known male of his clan and will try and revive the Uzumaki clan. By law he is the head of his clan and his children will be his heirs, thus making them main house members of the Uzumaki clan, along with Hinata who will become the clan's matriarch, also is my daughter, she is by birth and is still part of the Hyuga main house. Hiashi said as he had thought about this argument carefully. Hiashi, that's not what we meant and you know it. Kagero said angry that Hiashi would try to use that as his excuse. Many members were currently arguing with each other, some against Hiashi's statement while others were in favor of it. It was a rather rare event seeing some of the most reserved citizens of the village in a mass verbal battle. Remember, there's the chance that their children may not even inherit the Byakugan and even if they do, we won't know until they've grown. Hanabi said, trying to placate the entire room and keep her temper in check, torn between trying to prevent a brawl and wanting to knock these old fools herself. The reason the cage bird seal was created was to protect the Byakugan from falling into enemy hands and to keep order within the clan itself, but all it's done is distant our two houses. Hiashi said, Hiashi-sama, we approve of Hinata marrying Uzumaki-san but we can't just ignore the Byakugan, the only other solution would be to adopt Uzumaki-san into the clan's registry. Keisuke suggested. All the other members stopped their arguing and were now paying full attention to Keisuke who proceeded to explain his solution. By making Uzumaki-san an official member of the main house, Hinata's descendants will still be members of the clan and the Byakugan will remain safe and secured. Keisuke explained, with several members nodding and liking the idea. Hiashi couldn't believe that Keisuke was suggesting making Uzumaki-san a Mukoyoshi. Hiashi shook his head. While it was common practice for families to adopt their son-in-laws should no male heirs be available, Hiashi knew it would be unfair to end Kushina-san's lineage in such a way, especially since Hanabi's future husband would already be subjected to it. Uzumaki-san had his own duty to his clan, however small it may be, and it's his birthright that his children have his name. I cannot ask Uzumaki-san that, since not only is it unnecessary seeing as Hanabi's husband would become adopted to our registry thus continuing our clan name for the next generation, but it would also be unfair since he is trying to revive his own clan. Hiashi explained and was glad to see most of the younger generation on his side, but Keisuke, Kagero and some other elders along with the more pompous clan members were unconvinced. The Uzumaki clan is all but extinct at this point. Keisuke said offhandedly, ignoring the death glare Hiashi was sending him. And that's why his heirs must be given his family name. Hiashi said, trying to keep himself from the older man. Hiashi knew there was no way they were going to resolve this today, so he dismissed them for now, feeling a migraine coming. He was glad his daughter and her fiancé were out celebrating with their friends at the moment, far away from these old-fashioned, narrow-minded fools. That could have gone better. Hanabi said sarcastically as she and her father were the only ones left in the conference room. You got that right. Damn that Keisuke Tem. Hiyashi growled under his breath when he thought about that old man. He knew the real reason why Keisuke suggested adoption. It wasn't because he was worried about the Byakugan, it was because he wanted a Hyuga to become Hokage. For generations, many of their clan's elite members have tried to rise through the ranks in hopes of one day attaining office, and Keisuke was one of them, but old age and health eventually caught up with him and he was no longer eligible for candidacy, but it didn't stop him from trying to live through the younger generation. Uzumaki-san becoming the next Hokage was practically all set now, and the marriage between him and Hinata would bring their clan a lot of advantages in the future once he takes office. However, it apparently wasn't enough for Keisuke and his followers. Keisuke wanted to take advantage of Uzumaki-san through his marriage to Hinata, and he was using the cage bird seal as a threat. Hiyashi despised that old fool. Keisuke was snobbish, misogynistic, vain and manipulative, and he was almost considered his father's second in command while he was still alive, and they were both equally snobbish and stubborn. Hiyashi knew his father would have agreed with Keisuke's suggestion for the same motives. Hiyashi shook his head. While it would be a great honor for one of their clansmen to take the mantle of Hokage someday, he would only accept it if it was truly earned, not taken by cheating and threats. There was also the matter of Uzumaki-san's genetics, his longevity and great chakra reserves, not to mention his many skills and techniques were very impressive, and Keisuke clearly wanted them to remain within the Hyuga family. Meanwhile, far away from the drama at Hyuga compound, Naruto and Hinata were preparing to inform their friends about the big news. They were currently at Ichiraku's and were waiting for their friends and comrades to arrive. The two lovebirds were eager to celebrate with all their precious people. Soon, everyone was there. All the remaining members of the Konoha 11 had arrived along with their senseis. Kakashi-sensei wasn't there since he was still trapped in the office with a ton of paperwork, but Naruto would just tell him later. Tsunade and Shizune were also out of the village on another one of the old lady's infamous gambling sprees, and he knew they wouldn't be back until after Tsunade bit off more than she could chew, again. Sakura, Ino, Tenten, Shikamaru, Choji, Lee, Sai, Captain Yamato, Kiba, Shino, Maida Guy, Kurenai-sensei and her daughter Mirai, even Iruka-sensei was there as well. Ayame and her dad were busy working, but they were discreetly paying attention to their favorite customer and his girlfriend's drama. You guys are probably wondering why we all called you here, today. Naruto said dramatically while on the inside was beaming. He couldn't wait to see the looks on their faces once he told them the big news. What's this about Naruto? Sakura asked suspiciously to her teammate. True, Naruto has grown up a lot, but he still had his moments. Yeah, it's not like you to suddenly call in some big meeting. Ino said, still stumped. Sai, however, stood there with his fake smile. He found it amusing that they still couldn't see the obvious yet, their signs were all there clear as day. Everyone's jaw dropped, including Ayame, and Tsuki's, and Naruto was laughing like a hyena, but he somehow managed to regain his composure. 3 seconds later, loud screams echoed throughout the village, as it shows that Ino, Sakura and even Tenten and Ayame somehow got out of their shock and were now surrounding Hinata, shouting and squealing in joy. Anime and manga. Oh my gosh, Hinata-chan. I'm so happy for you. Sakura shouted as she hugged her dark-haired friend tightly. You two must be so happy. Ayame said sweetly. Since she stopped working the second Hinata showed her ring and was still admiring it. I believe a congratulations are in order. Sai said as he shook hands with Naruto and silently pleaded to him not to reveal their little chat to Ino, who was still drooling over Hinata's engagement ring. Now this is what I call true youth. Guy said loudly from his wheelchair, still in his usual, jovial way that caused some to cringe due to the volume of his voice. Oh, Hinata-chan, Kurenai said happily as she hugged her female student, who hugged her back tightly. The ring is so gorgeous. Ino gushed, admiring the beautiful symbol of love and commitment, while she secretly felt some envy due to the lack of one on her own finger. Sai suddenly felt a sudden chill run down his spine, but he brushed it off, thinking it was the cool AC. Yosh. May the flames of youth burn bright for your union. Lee shouted in his usual, enthusiastic way, feeling happy for his friend's happiness. I always knew you end up tying the knot one of these days. Tenten said to her shy comrade since she was the one who was used to her teammate and sensei's loudness unlike the others. Tenten, Hinata said with a blush, but she couldn't stop smiling. Congratulations, man, Kiba said as he slapped Naruto on the back. Yes, this is a very joyous occasion, Shino said in his usual monotone voice. Naruto was grinning a mile wide as he put his arm around his beautiful, blushing bride-to-be who was also smiling sweetly at him. Believe it, you guys. Me and Hinata-chan are getting married. He announced proudly to his friends. I'm so proud of you, Naruto. Iruka said to his old student, giving him a manly hug. Congratulations, Hinata-chan, Kurenai said as she hugged her pupil once more. All right. Naruto pumped his fist but still held his future wife close. Anime and manga. The rest of the afternoon was a happy one with the girls grilling Hinata for details about the proposal and asked questions about the wedding, while the men were drinking and congratulating their very lucky comrade. Are you serious? Tenten asked in amazement. Yes, it's true. Naruto-kun took me to the waterfall where we had a nice picnic and he told me he wanted to spend the rest of his days with me. Hinata said sincerely as she smiled, remembering the greatest moment of her life, so far that is. I never knew Naruto could be that romantic. Ino said as she had a dreamy look on her face, she was a big for romance. Sakura just sat there feeling happy for her best friends, but her thoughts drifted to her own love who was currently out of the village doing some soul searching. She wondered if soon, she might be the one to show off a beautiful ring and celebrate with her friends. She shook her thoughts away. Today was about Naruto and Hinata and their happiness. However, Sakura wasn't the only one who was deep in thought. Iruka just sat there with his own drink in his hand as he looked at his old student. Naruto was no longer the mischievous, wild but lonely little child who had to act out to get attention. In the place of that child now stood a man who was about to take the biggest step of his life, and Iruka couldn't be happier and more proud of him. Naruto would never be lonely ever again. He now had friends, a great future and the love of a good woman. He knew he and Hinata would be very happy together. They deserved it after all. Kurenai was also chatting and admiring her own student, proud of the woman that now stood before her. She was proud that Hinata managed to achieve her goal without having to sacrifice who she was deep down. Her once shy student was no longer that frightened little girl but was now a beautiful, strong and amazing woman, and she was still as kind and sweet as she ever was. A true kunoichi in her own opinion. So when will the wedding be? Kurenai asked while she held her now sleeping daughter. Yeah, when's the big day you two? Ino asked, eager to get a start on the planning. Oh, we still haven't decided yet. Hinata said to her many friends. Yeah, I mean we just got engaged yesterday. Naruto said honestly to everyone. I still can't believe you guys didn't tell me when me and Sai saw you guys last night. Ino said with a pout. Anime and manga. Sorry Ino-chan, but we wanted everyone together so we could all celebrate together as friends. Hinata said kindly to the platinum blonde girl who lost her pout since she couldn't stay mad at her. Either way, you better prepare yourself, Hinata-chan. Ino said as she stood up dramatically. After this we are going to plan the ultimate wedding. Ino shouted, getting everyone's attention, and soon all the girls were giving suggestions. Tomorrow you and I are going dress shopping and we aren't stopping until we find you the perfect dress. Ino said as she leaned in too close to her shy friend. Ino-chan. Hinata shuddered since she wasn't used to having anyone but Naruto this close to her. And don't worry about the flowers, my family will handle it. Ino said proudly to her flustered friend. Not to mention we have to get the catering and decorations. Sakura said, feeling the excitement about planning the upcoming wedding. I think a traditional Shinto wedding would be perfect for you, Hinata. Tenten said, as she imagined Hinata in the beautiful kimono and was squealing on the inside. No way. I think a garden wedding would be gorgeous. Ino said as she imagined Hinata in a beautiful gown surrounded by hundreds of gorgeous flowers and tried hard not to gush. I think a wedding on the beach is very romantic. Ayame said as she wanted to keep part of the conversation. Actually, I'm on Tenten's side, a Shinto ceremony is a must. Sakura said to the other women who were currently arguing which idea was the best one. What do you think, Hinata-chan? The many girls asked to the future bride who flinched due to being put on the spot. Actually, I still don't know what I want yet. Hinata said to her frustrated friends. Kurenai just sat there and was chuckling at the sight of the over-eager girls and her bashful student. They all have grown up so fast. How does it feel, Naruto? Kiba asked to his blonde comrade. I feel like I'm the luckiest guy ever. Naruto said happily. You should be. Hinata is a good woman and she is our precious teammate as well. Shino said in his usual voice, but Naruto noticed the mild hostility in it. Kiba and Shino now stood in front of Naruto with serious expressions, and even more serious in Shino's case. Just remember one thing, Naruto-san. Shino whispered so Hinata would not hear them. Hinata is our precious friend, so you better treat her right. Kiba said while glaring to the suddenly pale blonde boy. They both knew Naruto was a good guy and that he loved Hinata, but Hinata was almost like a sister to them and they couldn't help but feel a bit protective of her. They wanted to make sure she was happy. Naruto was sweating a bit at being intent, but it at least wasn't as bad as Hiyashi's was. I promise you guys, I will always treasure Hinata no matter what, she's my most precious person. Naruto said with no hesitation in his voice. Good. Kiba said before returning normal and Shino went back to his own version of merry-making. Geez. When will it stop? Naruto thought in dismay at his friend's sudden mood swings and hoping this would be the end of it. You're a lucky guy, Naruto. Choji said happily to his friend while he was finishing his 12th bowl of beef ramen. Though a part of him couldn't help but feel a little jealous, not that he liked Hinata in that way. He didn't. It was just that one of his friends was about to be married while he still couldn't work the nerve to ask Karui out. He always had a thing for her but he couldn't stop getting all shy when she was around. Better prepare yourself, you have a lot coming your way. Shikamaru jabbed good naturally to the blonde. Then I say bring it on. Naruto shouted with his usual, fox-like grin. He was going to be married to an amazing woman and have a happy life with her. He was way more than prepared for that. The celebration continued for hours until it started to get late and many were going home. See ya later, you guys. Ino said as she left with sigh. Don't forget that tomorrow we're going to look over patterns, Hinata-chan. Sakura said before leaving. Geez, with how excited they are, you'd think she or Ino were the ones getting married. Naruto joked to his fiancé who giggled in return. They're just happy, Hinata said to her beloved fiancé. The couple then walked home together. Hinata was holding on Naruto's arm with a blissful look on her face and Naruto just stared at her with adoration. Soon, Hinata-chan, you will be my wife. Naruto said softly to the woman he loved. And you will be my husband, Naruto-kun. Hinata said softly to her beloved. I still can't believe this is happening. Sometimes I worry if this is a dream and I will wake up. Hinata said as she gazed at her ring. It feels like it was just yesterday that she was still in the academy and she was still admiring Naruto from afar, dreaming of the day she would finally tell him how much she admired him and wanted to walk beside him forever. You better believe that it's happening, Hinata-chan. Naruto said confidently to his future bride. I promise you, Hinata, this is only a dream come true. Naruto said earnestly to his beloved. It truly was a dream come true to him. He finally had someone who truly loved him unconditionally for who he was and who wanted to be with him. He still couldn't believe that soon this beautiful, sweet angel of a woman would one day welcome him home. This would be the woman he would spend the rest of his life with. This would be the woman who would be there for him to cheer him up when he had a bad day, who would care for him when he was ill and who would always stand beside him during good times and bad. Hinata would no longer just be his girlfriend, she would no longer be just his friend or comrade. She was his entire future now, She would not only be his wife but she was going to be his family as well. A family with Hinata-chan, that would be more precious to him than the Hokage position and a lifetime supply of ramen combined. I love you Hinata-chan. Naruto said softly to the woman he loved. Anime and manga. And you, Naruto-kun. Hinata whispered as she gazed into her beloved's eyes and never wanted to look away. The two kissed and remained in bliss, happy and eager for what the future had in store for them. The two were just a block away from the Hyuga compound when they saw Hiashi approach them. Father, what are you doing here? Hinata asked to her father. Hiashi had been waiting for hours for them to come home. They needed to be informed of what Keisuke and the other elders were planning, but it had to be someplace where the walls didn't have ears, or eyes in this case. We need to talk, Hiashi said seriously to the young couple. The engaged couple and worried father soon arrived to Naruto's apartment in a flash. Naruto was internally happy that he remembered to clean up his apartment earlier today. Ever since he started dating Hinata, he made an effort to keep his place decent since she would sometimes come over to make him lunch or dinner like she was already a doting wife. He wasn't suddenly a neat freak but at least his place was habitable, right now to say the least. Hiashi sat in the middle of Naruto's living room with his daughter and son-in-law to be sitting right in front of him, both wearing looks of concern about this unexpected little meeting. What is it that you wanted to discuss, father? Hinata asked in a worried tone. She had a bad feeling about this little meeting and her father's behavior as of recently. As you already know, I have informed the elders about your engagement. Hiashi said in an even tone, but he frowned as he recalled how that went and how smug Keisuke looked when he left. Oh no. Don't tell me they don't approve. Hinata asked in dismay while Naruto looked like he was about to become angry. The last thing either wanted was someone trying to veto their marriage. On the contrary, they were pleased when I said you two are to wed. Hiashi said as he thought back to earlier today. No matter how much they tried to hide it, he could see the elders, especially Keisuke, were very excited about the union, but for the wrong reasons. That greedy Tem, Hiashi thought angrily as the thought about that ambitious old fool. Then what's the problem, Dadbao? Naruto asked, wanting to know what his big emergency was. Hinata also looked confused, wondering what the problem could be. They approve of your marriage, but there is the matter concerning your future children. Hiashi said with a frown. What do you mean, father? Hinata asked in a confused tone of voice. What did that have to do with anything? Hinata, as you already know, you are marrying into the Uzumaki clan. Hiashi said and his daughter nodded. The elders are concerned about the possibility of your children inheriting the Byakugan, and if so they will belong to your fiancé's clan. Hiashi said and Hinata's eyes widened as she had guessed where this was going and was praying to Kami it wasn't what she thought. What does that even mean? Naruto asked to his future father-in-law. There is a debate whether to place the cage bird seal on your children. Hiashi said looking down trying to suppress his anger. The atmosphere in the room changed with Hinata having a terrified expression and she looked like she was about to cry while Naruto's face was now red with anger. What? Naruto shouted at the top of his lungs, scaring some birds and disturbing some passerbys outside. Father, please tell me it's not true. Hinata pleaded, trying hard not to cry. It wasn't fair. The elders couldn't do this. Despite her no longer being first in line to inherit the clan, Hinata never worried about her or her children being placed in the branch house since she was a woman and was fortunate enough to have been a single birth, and tradition states that only men could start a branch family. It won't be if I have any say in the matter. Hiashi said with a determination Naruto admired. I can't believe them, they have no right. Naruto stomped around his apartment, trying not to lose control of himself. He couldn't believe this. His children haven't even been conceived yet and already some bastards are trying to threaten them. If they think I'm going to sit by and let them brand my kids just because they're not true Hyugas, they got another thing coming. Naruto shouted in anger. After a few more minutes of ranting, Naruto finally calmed down and sat back down next to his fiancée, who had a confused look on her face. Father, I just don't understand. Women in our clan have married outsiders before and this issue has never been brought up before. Hinata said as she recalled several of her relatives in the main house. It hasn't even been a year since one of her relatives, Hoshi, married a member of the Takatori clan, one of their allies, and she was a daughter of the main house. It's because of who you are and whom you are marrying, Hinata. Hiyashi said, causing the couple to look bewildered. What do you mean by that? It's not because I'm a Jinchuriki, is it? Naruto asked in disbelief. It's been years since anyone had treated him differently due to Kurama, but since he saved the village from pain, the issue had never been brought up again, or so he thought. It's not that. They say that they are worried that any children you have with the Byakugan will belong to your clan exclusively and they don't like that. Hiyashi said to the young couple. While Hinata is no longer heiress, she is still a member of the main house, and my daughter, Uzumaki-san, as you are the last living male of the Uzumaki clan, by tradition that makes you head of your clan and your children will be your heirs. Hiyashi said, though Naruto still didn't understand. They dislike the idea of the Byakugan belonging to another clan, and they propose an alternative solution. Hiyashi said with an angered look on his face. An alternative solution? Hinata asked in confusion with some hope laced on her voice. Naruto also looked confused and wondered where this was going. Hiyashi sighed and he knew this was not going to end well for them. The elders believe the only other option would be for you to become a Mukoyoshi, Uzumaki-san. Hiyashi said with Hinata's eyes widening and Naruto still looked lost. A what? Naruto asked in confusion. A Mukoyoshi is exactly what it sounds like, an adopted son-in-law. The elders are practically demanding that you be adopted into our clan's registry once you two are married. Hiyashi replied, surprising Naruto in the process. Adopt? Naruto asked in confusion and disbelief. Sometimes clans adopt their sons-in-laws should no male heirs be available. It's an old practice which would ensure the family having a suitable heir and the family name continuing for the next generation. Hiyashi said with a sigh. After you and Hinata marry, your name would be Hyuga Naruto from then on. Hiyashi said to the blonde man, though he tried to hide his own cringe at the sound of the name. He liked the boy, but even he knew how wrong that sounded. Hinata looked down. She knew that practice was still commonplace and she suddenly realized why the issue never became a problem with her relatives, and why her clan was still so big. Hinata looked at Naruto and noticed the uneasy look on her beloved's face and she knew the reason why. The Uzumaki clan was once a powerful and prosperous clan that unfortunately died out, leaving only few survivors. Naruto was the last known male survivor and he had a duty to continue his family line. If he were to become a Mukoyoshi, it would almost guarantee the end of the Uzumaki's lineage. Is it really the only way? Naruto asked in a hesitant tone of voice that broke Hinata's heart. Her beloved was practically being forced to choose between his own family and his love for her. It was practically a nightmare. There is also more, I'm afraid. Hiyashi said as he thought back to that sneaky Keisuke and his followers. What? Was what both of them said. They claim to be concerned with the Byakugan, but the truth is that many people in my clan desire a Hyuga to become Hokage. Hiyashi said, confusing both the young adults. What does that even mean? Naruto asked, though Hinata could already see what her father was trying to say and was starting to get really mad. Uzumaki-san, you are a very powerful ninja, famed and revered worldwide, and you are also the prime candidate of becoming the next Hokage. The elders are aware how advantageous it would be for you to marry a member of our clan. Hiyashi said, still remember the gleam in Keisuke's and the others' eyes when he mentioned the marriage and reminded them of Naruto's future inauguration. Hinata tried hard not to roll her eyes. Figures the only reason the elders approved was because they thought they could gain something from her marriage. Hinata knew had this happened before the war or even the invasion, they would be completely against her marriage and fight her tooth and nail for her to marry a more suitable man. However, there are some members of our clan, particularly the elders, that have desired for someone with the Hyuga name to become Hokage. it's been something of a dream in my clan for many years. Hiashi said, closing his eyes. Don't all clans dream of that kind of stuff? Naruto asked in a flat tone, causing Hiashi to nod. I suppose, but they are aware that you becoming Hokage is inevitable at this point. It is only being a matter of when Rokudaime-sama chooses to retire. Hiashi said to the younger male. By adopting you into our clan's registry, you would be called Hyuga Naruto, thus giving the elders exactly what they want. Also, you would be added to the main house and would be instructed in all our clan's traditions and norms. Hiashi said with a sigh and feeling another migraine coming. Such a union would raise their clan's status tenfold in the eyes of the village. They were already considered among the elite of the Land of Fire, and this would not only secure it but give them an even greater advantage in any future political affairs both inside and outside the village once Naruto takes office. By having Uzumaki-san become an official member of the Hyuga clan, they would practically be on par with the Senju clan. Having who was now considered one of the most powerful ninjas in their nation's history, a Hokage to be in the world's hero as a member of the main house would be their most valued asset. But the price to pay wasn't worth it in his eyes. He had known Kushina-san when she was still alive. They were not close, but he did respect her as a fellow ninja, and he knew he couldn't bear being responsible for the end of her family's proud lineage. Hinata had a troubled look on her face. While she cared deeply for her clan as a whole, many members in the main house were snobs who were stuck in the old ways. Many men in her clan, including her father, were almost Naruto's polar opposite, being stoic, reserved, formal and old-fashioned, while Naruto was carefree, energetic, straight to the point and always moved forward. Hinata almost cringed as she visualized her beloved looking like a typical man of the Hyuga main house, always dressed in robes and being so serious. It was so un-Naruto-like. Naruto on the other hand looked ready too. I can't believe this, Dadbao. Naruto roared at the top of his lungs, though Hinata and Hiashi didn't even flinch. I can't believe those old farts. Threatening my future kids just because they want to take advantage of my marriage. Naruto said, raving as he could feel the vein popping from his forehead. If they want one of their own to become Hokage, then fine. I don't care about that, but what they're doing is practically cheating, Dadbao. Naruto shouted loud, panting after his little rant. You're right, it is cheating in a sort. Hiashi admitted. As you can tell, I don't approve of this idea and several others member don't as well. It's still in debate and I'm going to make sure it never comes to that. Hiashi said, determined, to the fuming blonde male. It won't happen, Naruto said, though he saw Hinata made a face and he misunderstood it. Hinata, I love you and I want nothing more than to marry you, but I can't just forsake my own clan. Naruto said, looking down, causing Hinata to snap out of her unwanted daydream. I would never ask you to, Naruto-kun. Hinata said honestly to her beloved. Time seemed to stand still for a while. Naruto just sat there with a sad, pensive look that worried Hinata, and Hiashi could sense the turmoil the boy was in. You know, when I was a kid, I would have given anything in the world to know who my family was and where I came from. You don't know how much it meant to me when I finally met my parents and learned about the Uzumaki clan. Naruto said as he smiled softly, thinking about his first encounter with his mother. Despite his parents and clan in total no longer being among this earth, Naruto still felt wonderful to know he even had a clan at all. A family, ancestors and a lineage to uphold. He couldn't describe the pride and joy he felt when he thought about his family history. The more he learned about his mother, father and clan, the more connected he felt with them. He wanted nothing more than to continue his family line. He owed it to his mother and his ancestors to make sure the Uzumaki name doesn't ever die out. And he wasn't going to let some old pricks make him forsake his family name for their own agenda. My mother, my children and my ancestors, I can't just let them go. Naruto said with his head down. If he agreed to become Mukoyoshi, he was practically ending his family name and being told to forget about his mother's family. He could never bring himself to do such a thing. I understand and I would never ask you to do this. it's not fair to both you and Kushina-san, rest her soul, and the many other Uzumakis who served our village. Hiyashi said solemnly, sensing the internal conflict within the blonde youth. Then what are we going to do? Hinata asked to her father and her fiancé. She wanted nothing more than to marry Naruto, but she wanted it to end with her becoming Uzumaki Hinata, not the other way around. For now, we have a wedding to plan, you leave the elders to me. Hiyashi said to his daughter. Also, I would advise you both to keep your guards up with Keisuke Oji-san. Hiyashi said to them, causing Hinata to glare at the mention of that name. I should have realized he was the mastermind behind this. Hinata said bitterly as she thought about that pompous old man. Who's Keisuke? Naruto asked in confusion. He's one of the elders and a complete, well, let's say jerk. Hinata paused, knowing it was unladylike to say what she really thought of the man, and Naruto and her father got the message. Funny, I think this is the first time I've seen you use that word. Naruto teased, trying to lighten the mood. He was the one who brought the issue up, and it was his idea to make you a Mukoyoshi, Uzumaki-san. Hiyashi informed the younger male. He's a proud man who claims that he is concerned with our lineage when in reality, he's a stubborn, old fool who believes he's entitled to have his way. Hiyashi said angrily, though he managed to control himself. He only cares about making his little ambition of a Hyuga becoming Hokage real, and he's using the cage bird seal as a threat. Hiyashi said bitterly, causing the blonde male to look livid once more. If that thinks I'm going to let him use my marriage as his shortcut, he's got another thing coming. Naruto said angrily, already hating the man. I promise you that no matter what, I will not let your future children, my grandchildren, be branded, and I promise you that the Uzumaki name will continue. Hiyashi said to his future son-in-law. Thank you for bringing this up, father. Hinata said politely. Yeah, thanks for the warning, Dadbao. Naruto said truthfully to the middle-aged man. Anytime, you two, now I must be off. Hiyashi got up and made his way to the door. He knew that this wasn't going to be the end of this, it was only the beginning. May the elders and especially Keisuke be damned. The following morning, the entire Hyuga compound was abuzz due to the news they received of Hinata-sama's betrothal to the village hero. Everyone was overjoyed for various reasons, that the former heiress has managed to find such a good match, and others were eager to prepare for the upcoming wedding. This is all so exciting, Hinata-sama must be thrilled. Ayano, a young female of the main house, said to her twin sister Hoshi. I know what you mean, Uzumaki-san is the most eligible bachelor in the village, and he's practically has the Hokage title reserved. Hoshi replied to her twin with a grin. Hemp. If you ask me, I don't think it will last. Hitomi, Hinode's granddaughter, said with her arms crossed. Hitomi was a daughter of the main house, and she was a spoiled girl who thought she deserved the best of everything. She was the spitting image of Hinode in both looks and attitude, the only difference was that she was young. Please give it up, Hitomi-chan, jealousy is a rather unattractive feature in a woman. Hoshi jabbed to her uppity relative. Hitomi was only 17 and she thought she was hot stuff because she was a jonin, something her parents and Hinode Obasan were very proud of. It was obvious she was jealous of the engagement between Hinata and Naruto, since she was one of his fangirls and made a few passes at the blonde, even after he started dating Hinata. Naruto, however, was oblivious to her advances and remained with Hinata, much to the other girls' dismay. Hitomi glared and had a scandalized look on her face, as if Hoshi said something that was untrue. I am not jealous, I am just sharing my opinion, Hitomi said with a glare that almost had her activating her Byakugan. Well, we didn't ask for it. Ayano snapped back to the younger girl, clearly tired of her jealous comments. Ladies, this is no time for gossiping, you all are supposed to be training. Aika, a plump, Hyuga woman in her 40s, instructed to the younger girls. Yes, Aika Obasan, the three girls said in union as they went back to their training. It seems everyone in the prosperous, noble clan were all thinking about the upcoming marriage between their former heiress and the village hero. especially one very old man who was eager for the wrong reasons. Keisuke was in his late 80s and he was currently the oldest member within the Hyuga main house. Despite his advanced age, he was by no means feeble. Although his body was no longer in its prime, he prided himself in retaining his sharp mind. Keisuke was strolling around his estate as he saw the other members of the main house were very excited about the engagement between Hiyashi's daughter and Uzumaki Naruto, and they should be. His skills, fame, lineage and connections guaranteed that someday soon, the boy would lead their village. He had a big future ahead of him and Keisuke wanted his clan to be there when it happened. Hinata's engagement to him was like a blessing from Kami-sama himself. He knew that the boy was his key to the Hokage's office once he married into the clan. That girl couldn't have done any better. Kijiro thought smugly as he thought about Hinata fulfilling her role in increasing their family's standing. Keisuke believed that the best way a woman could bring honor to their family was by finding a suitable husband, and he was relieved that Hinata-sama didn't fail at that. He and the other elders were at one point considering arranging an omiai for her once she reached 20. But her relationship with Uzumaki-san cancelled that plan since the boy was a superior match than some mere nobleman or jonin from one of their allies. Naruto was an elite ninja who was revered worldwide. He was powerful, famous and had a lot of important connections, especially with the other Kages, royals, and practically every important person in the shinobi world had a high opinion of him. He was surprised but very pleased when he learned that Uzumaki was courting one of their own, and even more when Hiyashi announced the engagement. He knew that soon, their clan's greatest ambition would come true. He had high hopes that Neji, rest his soul, would have had the chance of becoming Hokage. He was a talented genius and he was a proud member of their clan despite coming from the branch house. Unfortunately, he died defending their village during the war. He died like a true warrior of their clan, and Keisuke was upset that such a strong boy was no longer among the living anymore. At least there is still a chance. Keisuke thought with a smirk. He was going to make sure Uzumaki-san became a true Hyuga by any means necessary. It was the more practical solution anyway. Uzumaki-san was powerful, but he still came from humble beginnings and his clan was gone now. The Hyuga clan has been around since the founding of Konohaguruk, and they were among the elite in the shinobi world. They had wealth, connections and a noble lineage that they needed to uphold. Uzumaki-san would become a very important asset once he joined the main house, where he would groomed into their ideals, traditions and lifestyle. Unfortunately, Hiyashi-sama was not being reasonable and refused to see the big picture. Uzumaki-san being added to their registry was in their best interests, and it would reaffirm their place as the strongest clan in the village, if not the entire shinobi world. It wasn't just the boy's future that he was interested in, as much as he didn't want to admit it, but the Uzumaki clan had impressive genetics that would be very useful for their bloodline. But Hiyashi was a fool, a sentimental, unrealistic fool, since he and a few others were willing to sacrifice such an advantage for Uzumaki-san's clan, which was all but gone now. You are only prolonging the inevitable, Hiyashi Baka, but the Hyugas are the strongest in the village and you and that boy will understand it. I will make sure of it. Keisuke thought as he went to talk to the other elders in order to discuss their future. I just don't get it. Aren't you like the head of the clan, Hiyashi-sama? Can't you just order them that they can't do this? Naruto asked to his future father-in-law. I wish it was that simple, Uzumaki-san, but it's not. I may be head of the clan, but during important affairs, everything is cast into a vote, and if the majority of the clan agrees on the matter, I have no choice but to allow it. Quote. Hiyashi said with his gaze down. Being a leader was not as easy or glamorous as people wanted to believe. There were many difficult and often unpleasant matters that needed to be done, and his decisions would always have some effect on his clan. Fortunately and unfortunately, the topic about our little situation is in a deadlock. Practically half of the clan is either with or against the idea of forcing you to become a Mukoyoshi and placing the cage bird seal on your children. Hiyashi said to the younger male. I just can't believe this is happening. Hinata said somberly as she looked to the ground. She often thought about her future with Naruto even before they became a couple. She dreamed of one day becoming his wife, living in the same home together and even starting a family together. She wanted that more than anything in the world, but she never once would have thought they would face a situation like this. They were being threatened with the future of their children. If they didn't agree to the elders' demands, their children might be forced to bear that horrible cage bird seal, and if they complied, her beloved's family name would end. It was a no-win situation with the elders getting their way. I promise that no matter what, I won't let the elders get their way. It's your birthright that the Uzumaki family name continues, no strings attached. Hiyashi said, determined to his future son-in-law and daughter. Maybe we should bring this up with Kakashi-sensei. I'm sure he could think of something. Naruto said optimistically, only for Hiyashi to give a troubled expression. Uzumaki-san, the Hokage may be the leader of the village, but there is a policy regarding clan affairs. Hiyashi told the confused blonde. A policy? Naruto asked in a confused tone, since this was the first he heard of this. Naruto-kun, when the village was founded, Hashirama-sama made an agreement with each of the noble clans, in which that matters within each clan must be resolved on their own, and unless the circumstances are dire, the Hokage cannot interfere unless the majority agrees on it. Hinata explained to her shocked beloved. Are you kidding me? Naruto shouted in dismay. It's also the reason why the cage bird seal still exists. Hiyashi said with a frown. Believe me when I tell you that both the third and fifth Hokage have tried in helping abolish it, but there are still too many people who refuse to change. Hiyashi told him, which caused his future son-in-law to blink. I didn't know that the old man and Tsunade Bakken tried to get rid of it. Naruto said in a surprised voice. He was even more surprised to learn that apparently even that wasn't enough to get rid of the seal. Even the Hokage's influence has its limits. Hiyashi said in a sulking voice. The three remained there with dismayed looks, but it changed to determined ones. No matter what, they were not going to let the elders tell them how to live their lives. Suddenly, an Anbu appeared before them, confusing the couple and the middle-aged clan head. Good afternoon, Naruto-san. Hokage-sama is requesting your presence in his office right now. The Anbu said politely to the blonde. What does Kakashi-sense want? Naruto asked to the masked ninja. He didn't say, but he's demanding to see you right now. He is also requesting the presence of Hinata-san here. The Anbu insisted, causing the three to blink. Naruto, Hinata and even Hiyashi followed the Anbu and soon found themselves within the Hokage's office. They saw Kakashi there at his desk wearing an annoyed expression on his face, though they didn't understand why. I can't believe you, Naruto. Kakashi said, startling the blonde. What are you talking about? Naruto asked in confusion to his boss and sensei. I'm talking about the fact that guy came over here earlier to congratulate me for the fact that one of my students was finally going to experience the youthfulness of marriage, and all that. Kakashi said, quoting his self-proclaimed rival. Why did I have to learn about your engagement from Guy and not from you? Kakashi asked, annoyed and somewhat upset that he was overlooked like that. Naruto suddenly had a sheepish expression on his face, clearly embarrassed. He forgot that little detail. Oh, sorry about that, Kakashi-sensei. I was going to tell you, I swear, but I kinda got a little sidetrack. Naruto said as he scratched the back of his head, feeling embarrassed. I'm afraid it was my fault, Rokudaime-sama. I had some urgent business to discuss with my future son-in-law and we lost track of time. Hiyashi said with a bow, since Kakashi was the Hokage and deserved the respect. Kakashi lost his annoyed expression. It was kinda hard to tell due to his mask, but Naruto noticed due to his eyes softening a bit. Well, alright. I guess there is no point in staying mad anymore. Congratulations, Naruto. I knew you had it in you. Kakashi said, truly happy for his student. It feels like it was just yesterday he was assigned, and he recalled the blonde's introduction, about his goal of becoming Hokage and how he would be a great ninja. He still couldn't believe that the loud little rookie was now a strong, mature man now. He was proud of the blonde that stood before him, and he knew his late sensei, rest his soul, would have been proud as well. Good luck with him, Hinata. Just to warn you, he's quite a handful, I know from personal experience. Kakashi teased, which caused a protest from his blonde student and the girl to fight back a giggle. Oh, calm down, Naruto, I was just teasing. Kakashi said, still grinning since his eyes were in a U shape, which meant he was still laughing on the inside. Yeah, whatever. Naruto grumbled a bit. We have a lot to prepare for. I can see the village is going to be swarming with visitors who would be all over a chance to witness the wedding of the world hero. Kakashi said, getting their attention. Not to mention we have to get things ready. Kakashi said suddenly, and only Hiashi knew what he was talking about. Ready for what? Naruto asked, and Hinata was also confused. Rokudaime-sama is referring to your engagement party. Hiashi said, surprising the engaged couple. An engagement party? Naruto asked in disbelief. Hinata also looked surprised as well. Of course, Uzumaki-san, I believe it's as the perfect way to announce your engagement to the rest of the village. Hiashi said to the younger male. But I already told all of mine and Hinata's friends, and I'm planning on sending a letter to Gaara and all my other friends. We even celebrated at Ichiraku's. Naruto protested, not liking where this was going. He knew that engagement balls were a bit stuffy, and if it involved the Hyuga clan, he knew he would not be having any fun. He had been to one of the Hyuga parties before and he nearly died of boredom at the formal event. The only upside was that he at least got to dance with Hinata, and she looked so beautiful in her kimono, like a real princess. Uzumaki-san, you still have a lot to learn about politics. You plan to become head of the Uzumaki clan and Hokage someday, don't you? Hiashi asked, and Naruto nodded. You need to establish ties with other clans, not to mention this engagement and wedding will help cultivate our friendship with the other hidden villages. Hiashi said, and it made sense, politically speaking, of course. Naruto was the key to their victory in the war. He was famous throughout the world and he was the reason they were at peace with the other hidden villages, and this was a good chance to test that friendship. He's right, Naruto, this is a good way to strengthen our friendship with the other villages, especially now that we are at peace. Kakashi said, trying to keep himself in the conversation. All of our many allies, the other cages, not to mention the daimyos and many others, will be expecting an invitation to your wedding, not to mention your many fans would want to help the hero of the world celebrate his big day. Kakashi said to his student, who did not look pleased. Naruto put his face in his hands and felt a headache, while Hinata placed a hand on his shoulder. She somewhat expected something like this to happen. She was used to formal events like this due to her status as Hiyashi's daughter, and she didn't mind the idea, but she knew Naruto grew bored at those things. Why does everyone want to use my marriage for their own agenda? Naruto muttered while Hinata tried to cheer him up. It won't be so bad, Naruto-kun, at least we will be together. Hinata said in an optimistic tone to her fiancé. Cheer up, Naruto, it's just a party and you and your lovely bride are the main attractions. Kakashi said in good humor. A few days have passed since the announcement of the engagement between village hero Uzumaki Naruto and former heiress Hyuga Hinata, and the entire village was talking about it. The villagers were overjoyed that their hero was getting married, and many were wishing the best for the happy couple, while many business were hoping to get in on the action. Naruto was an important person in the shinobi world and he had a lot of fans, many who would no doubt come to the village just to see the grand celebration. Especially with the announcement of the upcoming engagement party. Ino exiting a shop after buying the latest bridal magazines since she wanted to help Hinata select the right gown when she noticed everyone was talking about the engagement between her friends, and, well, she always had an ear for gossip. This is all so exciting. They make such a lovely couple. An old woman said to her friends, who nodded in agreement. Hyuga-sama is such a lovely girl and she'll make such a beautiful bride. Another old woman with glasses said in agreement. It's so romantic. It's almost like a fairy tale come true. Ino heard a little girl squeal in delight to what she assumed was her older sister. If that's what he wants, I suppose. The girl said, and Ino could sense the jealousy in her tone, which the little girl was oblivious to. Ino sighed and felt some sympathy for Hinata. She knew that she didn't like being in the spotlight much, but it looks like the entire world is going to be paying attention to her and her hubby-to-be now that they were officially going to tie the knot. It's going to be a big day, Hinata-chan. You're the star and the whole world is going to be watching. Ino mused as she kept walking to the fabric store to pick up some samples to run by with Hinata. A person should only get married once, and she made it her mission to make sure that it ends up being the greatest day of Hinata's life. The wedding to end all weddings. WAAAAAAHHHHHHH. Ino snapped out of it when she heard several high-pitched screams and turned around to see a large group of young girls that were crying their eyes out. It just can't be so. A red-haired girl of 14 years old shouted, and she hid her face in her hands. How can Naruto-senpai do this to us? A blonde 15-year-old bawled and looked like she was about to go into a fetal positions. What does that Hyuga girl have that I don't? I'm just as good as she is. A jealous brunette of 16 said with her arms crossed, but she still had some tears in her eyes. Ino rolled her eyes at the overdramatic and embarrassing display, and just kept walking, though a part of her felt a little embarrassed that at one point of her life, she might have had a similar reaction if the groom in question was Sasuke Uchiha, but she's outgrown that. Mostly because of another tall, dark, mysterious but socially inept ninja who always somehow made it impossible for her to stay made at least forever, that is. Ino smiled as she thought about Sai. While he's still trying to socialize himself, and he still tested her and everyone else's patience, she still found her heart fluttering as she thought about his dark eyes and the way he tried hard to be normal, in his own blundering way. Things were so different now. Naruto and Hinata were getting married, and she might very well have a boyfriend now. It feels like it was just yesterday we were all just starting out. Ino sighed and felt some nostalgia, as she recalled the start of the Konoha 11 and all the adventures and connections they have made since then. Ino pictured both Asuma-sensei and her father and felt her heart clench and tried to fight back the painful memories. It's been years since their passings, but it still hurt at times. Not to mention the losses of Neji-san, Sandaime-sama, Shikamaru's dad Shikaku, and many others who made the ultimate sacrifice for their village in the shinobi way. If only you all were here to see this. Ino thought as she continued her path, before changing her tune. This engagement was a happy thing and she couldn't afford to be depressed right now. She was on her personal mission to make sure Hinata has the wedding of her dreams. Ino finally made it to the shop and admired the many fabric swatches for bridal dresses. The many colors, patterns and material were gorgeous, and she knew Hinata would look stunning in each and every one of them. How can they expect us to choose just one? Ino whined as she mentally recorded the ones she liked and made her way to the door when she noticed 3 figures outside and she instantly recognized them. They were Akane, Kaide and Ai, and they were Naruto's most persistent fan girls and could almost be considered the presidents of his fan club. They were the most well-known of Naruto's fans since they all originated from different villages but relocated to Konohaguruk in order to stay close to Naruto. Akane was the tall blonde girl of 18 who wore her forehead protector around her neck. Kaide was the 17-year-old brunette, and Ai was the one who always wore a cap, and she was also the youngest in the group since she was only 15. All 3 girls were crazy about Naruto and would follow him everywhere, even after he started dating Hinata, and they would always squeal about how heroic and amazing he was, when they weren't being jealous of Hinata and fighting each other over who would have been a better match. I still can't believe Naruto-senpai is throwing his life away on that little mouse. I said angrily. I agree, he would have been better off with me. Kaide said, which soon started another of their infamous, no, me fights, which lasted for a few minutes and them going back to their conversation like nothing happened. Even Sakura and I weren't that bad, were we? Ino thought to herself as she overheard more of the angry conversation. She didn't consider it eavesdropping since it was a public place and they weren't exactly making an effort to be private about it. I still don't understand why he chose her when he could have, one of us. Akane said, wording it carefully to avoid another spat with her friends. It's her jugs. It's the only thing that makes sense. I said with her arms crossed. It's obvious the only reason Naruto-senpai stays with her is because she put out. Kaide said snidely, and Ino felt her blood boil at such an accusation. I agree, I bet you both that's probably the reason why for the engagement. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few months, the population will expand, if you know what I mean. Akane said with an emphasis on the word expand. Hemp. It's so pathetic. I adore Naruto-senpai, but I would never go that far before I was married. I said self-righteously, and Ino found herself marching over to them in anger. You all take that back. Ino roared, startling the three younger girls, who realized that they had an audience. You three have absolutely no right to talk about Hinata-chan that way. Ino yelled to the stupid fangirls. What do you mean? Akane said in annoyance, which made Ino angrier. I'm saying that Hinata-chan is a wonderful, sweet girl, and you three are just a bunch of jealous hussies with too much free time on their hands. Ino snapped, which made the three girls glare at the steamed blonde girl. That Hyuga girl is just a self-centered bitch who's not good enough for our Naruto-senpai. Akane said angrily, only to gulp at the intent that Ino was sending. The only self-centered bitches around here are you three, and I heard what you said, and don't go accusing Hinata of being especially when you propositioned Naruto just a month before the last Rinne festival, and if memory serves me, it was an offer he refused. Ino said, staring directly at Akane, who looked ready to. Why you? Akane threw a punch, but Ino easily dodged it, and a fight broke out between the four women, but Ino had the upper hand. Akane, I and Kaide might be kunoichi, but the three were just shonen, and they spent most of their time obsessing over Naruto than training. While Ino was a jonin and actually gave a damn about her training, it was still 3 against 1, but Ino was handling them with relative ease. You three aren't even worth this. Ino said as she easily dodged the many punches and kicks the other three were throwing at her. She was about to put an end to it when someone stepped in the fight. Ink flush was heard, and Akane, Kaide, and I were suddenly restrained by what looked like snakes that were holding them like binds. What the hell? Kaide yelled as she tried to break free from the restraints. Now ladies, I may not be aware for the reason for this little disagreement, but I don't think the middle of the plaza is an appropriate place to fight. Sai said as he walked towards Ino, who was smiling at him. Thanks for the help, Ino said to the pale but handsome male. Don't thank me, believe it or not, you were not the one in danger here. Sai said as he gestured to the girls who were struggling to break free. I take that as a compliment, Ino said with a smirk. If I may, exactly what was this about? Sai said to the blonde girl who glared at her attackers. They were saying a bunch of made-up shit about Hinata, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Ino said in a no-nonsense voice while Sai stood there with his fake smile. I see. Protecting one of your precious people, Ino-chan, very admirable. Sai said carefully and noticed Ino was blushing. Sai then released the 3 kunoichi, who promptly ran away since they were clearly outmatched. Cowards, Ino muttered in disgust before turning her attention to her boyfriend. So what brings you here? Ino asked, since Sai rarely went out on his own. I was shopping for a wedding present for Naruto and Hyuga-san. Sai said, surprising Ino in the process. A wedding present? Ino asked. I read that it's customary for such occasions. Sai said in his usual way. I know it's customary, but it's a little early, don't you think, Sai? Ino said to the dark hair male. Naruto and Hinata still haven't chosen a date yet, and Sai was already shopping for their gift. Is it? I was unaware I was being premature. Sai said in his usual way once more, and Ino found herself giggling for some reason. Nah, it's just that most people wait at least until the date's been announced before buying something, but there's nothing wrong with being early. Ino said with a smile. So what are you planning on getting them? Ino asked, and Sai blinked a bit. Truth be told, I'm not sure what to buy them yet. I read that it's best to find something practical but at the same time unique. Sai said and noticed the sudden gleam in Ino's eyes and felt another strange chill run down his spine for some reason. Well, it's a great thing you ran into me. I'm going to help you find the greatest wedding present ever. Heck, I might as well pick something up as well. Ino announced, and before Sai could protest, she grabbed his arm and dragged him through the mall in her mad quest to find the perfect gift. Meanwhile, across the village, Hinata was on her way to the bakery to pick up some cinnamon rolls. Her only other love besides Naruto. This afternoon, there would be another meeting to discuss the future of her marriage with Naruto, and they would be joining in. She, Naruto, her father and sister, along with a few others, would debate against Keisuke and his followers and fight for her and Naruto's right to live their lives their way. So far the clan was decided on the matter. Almost half of it was against the idea of making Naruto a Mukoyoshi, while the other half believe it was a great idea. Hopefully they would be able to convince the rest to the clan to see it their way. It was a stressful situation and Hinata needed some comfort food, hence her visit to the local bakery for her favorite treat. Hinata soon saw her target up ahead, Nomura's Sweets. It was a simple business owned by a husband and wife team, and the sweets were positively delectable. Entering the establishment with the door jingling to alert the workers. Irashamus. A plump woman said from over the counter, but her eyes widened when she saw who it was. Good afternoon, Nomura-san. Hinata greeted to the middle-aged woman. Oh, Hyuga-sama, it's a pleasure to have you here once more. Hanako Nomura, the female half of the business, said with a large smile. I take it you came here for a special purpose. Hanako said, thinking about wedding cakes and other treats for such an occasion. The entire village was talking about the wedding of the century between the legendary Uzumaki Naruto and the lovely princess of the Hyuga clan. Only for some cinnamon rolls, please. Hinata said with a flush on her cheeks. She knew what she implied, but with everything that's happened, she didn't have the time to check out wedding cakes no matter how much she wanted to. Oh, Hanako said, trying to hide her disappointed and proceed to make the order. Hinata just stood there waiting, while she idly stared at the cakes and imagined a large white one for her and Naruto's wedding. Oh, Hyuga-sama. A loud, female voice brought Hinata out of her thoughts, and she saw a woman she has never seen before. Excuse me, do I know you? Hinata asked in confusion to the smiling woman. Greetings, I am Shibata Ayumi. I am from the Konoha Live News, and I would like to know if I could have an interview with you about your engagement to Uzumaki Naruto. Ayumi said in a professional manner, but on the inside she was beaming. Her show was still new, having had its premiere just a few months ago, but this story would her crown jewel. The wedding of the century between the hero of the world and the daughter of one of the most important clans in the village would sell like crazy. Hinata blinked a bit at the sudden offer. She knew that Naruto was famous, but she didn't expect to be interviewed, and she had enough things to deal with right now. I apologize, Shibata-san, but I am very busy today. Could this wait? Hinata said politely to the ambitious reporter. Ayumi frowned on the inside but kept her professional smile. This technically wasn't rejection after all. Not to mention she knew she was being very bold. Most reporters had to at least call and properly schedule one, but she came here to pick up some cookies for herself and saw Hyuga girl, and she had to jump at the opportunity. But of course, Hyuga-sama. I'll have my people call your people and we'll arrange a proper interview sometime. Ayumi said with a bow, and Hinata nodded while trying to move the conversation. An interview was the last thing she needed right now, when she still had no idea what her future had in store for her. Your order, Hyuga-sama, Hanako said, startling the two women. Oh, yes, thank you, Nomura-san. Hinata said with a bow and collected her box filled with her favorite treat. After paying and bidding goodbye to the young reporter, Hinata made her way back home, her head still filled with thoughts of what has happened lately. Getting engaged, learning about the elders' agenda, the preparations for her engagement party, all the planning she is to do with her friends who all seemed hell-bent on giving her the perfect wedding, and now some reporter and likely others were after an interview with her to discuss her future wedding with Naruto. It's been such a mess, and what's worse was that she's barely been able to enjoy spending time with her fiancé and get a start on the actual planning for the wedding. I'm getting a migraine, Hinata muttered as she tried to relax herself. Tonight was a big night and she couldn't afford to get her nerves acting out. Everything will work out, and once this nasty business is behind us. Hinata sighed as images of a beautiful wedding filled her mind, with her and her beloved being spiritually united as husband and wife, which would be the start of their wonderful new life together. A wedding, a happy marital life, and eventually starting a family together. New lives would be created from her and Naruto's pure love for each other. Naruto-kun. Hinata thought dreamily as she thought about her beloved fiancé and how soon her dream would come true. Soon she would be able to wake up next to Naruto, cook him breakfast, greet him when he came home, manage a sweet home of their own and mother a son or daughter who would be theirs and their alone. It was just so beautiful.